That's the first couple of minutes of my presentation stolen. Yeah, so I'm Gareth, and we're the Real Junk Food Project Birmingham. The Real Junk Food Project aims to abolish avoidable food waste. That's what we're trying to do. I've got a presentation here, just a little bit of background about food waste globally and in the UK, and then just a little bit about the Real Junk Food Project network, which we're part of, and then myself and Eileen, the other founder of the Real Junk Food Project Birmingham, will be available for your questions about the project. Okay. So globally, we have around 3.5 billion tonnes of food every year. That equates to about 490 kilos of food for every single person on Earth. Put some context around that. You need something like 300 kilos of food each per year, roughly, yeah, plus or minus 10%. So that's about what you need. So we've got way more than enough, right? But unfortunately, there's a little bit of waste going on. 350 million tonnes of consumer waste and 940, nearly 1 billion tonnes of manufacturing waste. Now, these are honestly really, really rough estimates. There isn't really anyone out there in the third world where most of our food is produced, our food and their food, measuring food waste. So, yeah, suffice to say that we're wasting somewhere around 30–40% of the food that we produce globally, and that creates problems because suddenly we've gone from having nearly 500 kilos a year to 300. UK food consumption, so there's some interesting patterns here. So in the 15 years from 1990 to 2005, these are quite old figures, but unfortunately it's quite difficult to get new figures. Consumption increased by 15%. So just to clarify that, consumption doesn't mean what we're actually eating. That means what we're supplied with. And that's a really, really key fact to remember, yeah? Because, you know, we come back to this figure before. We only need 300 kilos per person per year. Sorry, did I say 300? I've been saying 300, haven't I? It's 400. I'm terribly sorry. 400 kilos per person per year. Which hasn't changed, although the population of the UK in that same time period increased by about 5%. The amount of food we were supplied with increased by 15%. So you can see that, you know, there's a supply situation developing here that's not necessarily related to demand. The other thing that happened is that self-sufficiency, our self-sufficiency as a country fell from producing 70% of our own food. We now only produce 60%. Although that's a tricky metric as well, because as I said, it's not the food we need, it's the food we're supplied with that we're talking about here. So food waste. So the Waste Reduction Action Programme estimates that we wasted around 15 million tonnes of food in 2012. So that's about 37% of all the food we consume. We consume something like 41. Again, when I say consume, what we're actually talking about here is supply. We are supplied with about 41 million tonnes of food a year in the UK. Now, if we take that 400 kilos per person per year, magic figure, and we multiply it by the population of the UK, 65 million, we get 26 million tonnes. So 26 million tonnes is actually what we need. Now, if we knock 26 million off 41, you don't have to be a maths genius to work out that we're left with 15 million tonnes. And surprise, surprise, that's what we're wasting. So where's that waste coming from? So the retail industry, so that's all those evil supermarkets and shops, apparently are only wasting about 400,000 tonnes, just under 500,000. Restaurants, food service industry in particular, event catering. I was really pleased to see there was barely any waste here today. Really great, but that's really rare, I'm afraid. Most times at the end of events, there's just trays and trays of food. Nearly 1 million tonnes in the food service industry, restaurants as well. A lot of waste in restaurants. Manufacturing, 4 million tonnes, near enough. Now that's in sort of food processing, where a lot of the times efficiency is deemed to be how can we produce things as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible, not necessarily as efficiently as possible. So if something is inconveniently sized or shaped for the machines, then it just gets chucked in the bin. Now, that does not add up to 15 million tonnes, so where does the rest of it come from? I'm going to ask you all a question. Does anyone know? Domestic. Yeah, okay, so consumer waste. So RAP estimates that consumers waste 7 million tonnes of food a year. That's a big figure. And there's a lot of sort of activity around, if you've heard of the Love Food, Hate Waste campaign, to try and get consumers to be a little bit more responsible about their buying habits and, trying to use leftovers and things like that. That's great. I'm not sure it necessarily deals with the issue personally, because as I said, we're still being supplied with 15 million more tons more food than we can eat. But anyway, the other one is there's a 3 million tonne estimate in what they call pre-manufacturing. Now that is food that never leaves the farm. So again, the figures here get very sketchy. The estimates vary from about 25 to about 40% of the fruit and veg that we grow domestically in the UK never leaves the farm. It's not ever going to make it to a supermarket. It's never going to make it anywhere near your plate, because it just either rots in the fields and gets ploughed back in, or sometimes it gets harvested and then just left to rot. And that's, well, there's reasons for that around the fact that sometimes it's not economic for the farmers to harvest it. I'm not sure how that one works personally, but there we go. And you have other issues around a lot of supermarkets, a lot of buyers lock the farmers into exclusive contracts. So they say, if you want to sell your produce to us, then you can't sell it to anyone else. And then they'll create all kinds of rules around produce, around the size of produce and the shape of produce and the colour of produce that they'll accept. But the only thing they're not interested in is the taste. But hey, why would we worry about the taste of our food? And yeah, so potatoes, for example, it used to be 50 mil. They have actually changed it, but any potato that's less than 40 mil in size gets automatically rejected. Can't be eaten, apparently. There we go. So yeah. Global food situation. There is enough food. There's a growing amount of noise, mainly, in all honesty, coming from academics sponsored by the agrochemical industry, saying that we need to use more intensive farming practices, that we need to grow more food, that we need to make more land productive, but that's simply not the case. We already have enough food on the planet to feed everyone and to absorb some of the population growth that's scheduled to occur over the next 20 years. But there are issues. There are issues, clearly, with distribution of that food. There's a lot of it here that we don't need, and there's not a lot of it other places where it is needed. So, the Real Junk Food Project. So the Real Junk Food Project was founded in December 2013 by a gentleman called Adam Smith, not the one you've heard of, another one. So Adam's a chef. He's been a chef for about 15 years. He's worked all over the world, and he's seen firsthand, as I think a lot of people that work in catering and in retail as well, have seen the scale of food waste that's happening across the Western world and, as I said, across the whole globe these days. And he decided to do something about it. So he came up with the concept of the Real Junk Food Project. It's a really, really simple concept. We take waste food and we feed it to people. Anyone. If you eat, you're in. That's one of the hashtags we use. Really, we want everyone to know about this issue and be aware of this issue, and to understand Not just that lots of food is being thrown away, but the food that's being thrown away is, in the vast majority of cases, still perfectly edible. And that's, we believe, wrong, hence why we're looking to abolish avoidable food waste. We're not seeking to monetize this, we're not seeking to establish a business model based on food waste. There are organisations out there doing that right now, but we are interested in solving the problem, because this problem cannot go on. If food waste was a country, it would be the second largest CO2 emitter on Earth. Just food waste, not food, yeah? That's bigger. The food we need is bigger. We produce more, emit more CO2 producing the food we need, but we are wasting over a third of it, and that's a massive carbon budget that we just can't afford anymore. Sorry, lost my thread there slightly. Where were we? We want to abolish food waste. So yeah, we want people to understand that the food is edible and that we need to do something about it. So we feed it to people, and we want that to be open to all. As I said, we're not looking to now, nor will we ever look to monetize food waste. So all of the food that we serve is served on a pay-as-you-feel basis. That means we ask people to think about what they think the value of the food is and what they can contribute to our project in order to make it a success, and that may be money, and it may be time, and it may be skills. We've had people donate, so someone did some graphic design for us, they designed our logo. Other people have done social media work for us. People have volunteered in the cafe, volunteered intercepting food, picking up food, delivering it. We run a Freegan box scheme every week now in Birmingham. On a Sunday, we deliver boxes of mostly fruit and veg, but we do put other things in there as well, to anyone in Birmingham. It's pay as you feel if you collect it from us. If you need it delivered or want it delivered, then there's a small charge just to cover mileage, and we work that out communally based on the round trip mileage divided by amongst people based on their distance from the cafe. So it's equitable, or as equitable as we can make it. Sorry, the Real Junk Food Project started in Leeds in December 2013. It's been running for about 18 months now. There are now 12 cafes in Leeds, I believe, in the Leeds area, and over 50 nationwide, and internationally. There's a project in Cape Town in South Africa and a project in the south of France running. There are projects starting up elsewhere in the world as well. In the first quarter of this year, we intercepted over 35 tonnes of food, and we fed over 20,000 people in that network. And that network is, and personally, I'd expect that to double in Q2 when those stats come in. So, sorry. So, conclusions. Globally, we have enough food to feed everyone, and in this country, ridiculously so. We have 60% more food than we need in this country, but food poverty is on the rise. You know, I mean, it's a complicated issue here. It really is. Our food system is really messed up. We've raised in this country, we've raised a whole generation of people that have never seen fresh food. They don't know where it comes from, and you know, they expect frozen pizzas to come out of the freezer at Iceland, you know, and have no concept of how to make anything from scratch. We are throwing away massive amounts of fresh food that we are producing, even locally produced stuff. We work with allotments and community grow schemes to try and help them redistribute their surplus, because we don't believe any food should be wasted. And I think it's far more preferable that we move to these kind of local growing schemes where everyone can get access to fresh, locally grown produce, rather than having to ship it halfway around the world, only to end up wasting it half the time anyway. So that's the Real Junk Food Project. That's us. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Thank you so much, Gareth. I'm going to turn this on. The camera person isn't here, so I'm going to just hover around and see if that matters. Right then, so questions? Anyone with questions?
determination of how much you think it's worth.
Yep.
What about like homeless people who obviously can't offer, is that, do you distribute to them?
So we have a sign, it's actually downstairs at the moment. It says there's no such thing as a free lunch. I don't believe there is anything, I don't believe there is such a thing as a free lunch. I believe if you give someone food for free, what you're saying to them is that you have nothing of value to contribute to me. There's nothing you can give me back for this food. And there's a cost involved in that transaction, even if that cost is only to that person's self-esteem. So to answer your question, yes, we will feed anyone. If people don't feel that they can give anything, or they don't feel that the food is worth anything, then they don't have to give anything. But I don't believe that's true of anyone. Anyone can cook, yeah? I can take anyone in the kitchen and they can make a meal, yeah? It's the simplest thing in the world to make good food, healthy food. We're not trying to serve, Michelin-starred food here. We're not trying to create incredibly complicated food. I think personally that's one of the other issues, is that there's been a recent trend in this country towards overcomplicating cooking. You have things like the Great British Bake Off, where people are creating, 4-tiered patisserie towers of wonderment, and that's fantastic if you want to do that. But people look at it and they're so scared that they don't do anything, and they're so sort of caught up in it that if they do want to do anything, they'll decide that they have to go out and buy 57 different implements in order to make something, and it's just. Food isn't like that for me. Food is simple. You take good fresh ingredients and you cook them simply and you get tasty food out of it. But yeah, we do. Sorry, come back to your original question. Yes, we do. We'll feed anyone. It's open to everyone. If you eat, you're in. We'd far rather that people ate the food than it went in the bin. And we do get a lot of people coming in to the cafe and engaging with the project who are homeless. Some of them are rough sleepers. Some of them are, in hostels and homeless. That way, we get a lot of people with a lot of issues engaging with the project. Some of them do contribute, some of them don't. That's, it's open to all. Yeah. But we do encourage them to contribute. Yeah. We encourage them through the pay-as-you-feel concept to think about their value as a person and what they can contribute.
Another question here?
Really good to hear all of that. I'm aware, I've brought up my family over the years on leftovers, and that's just how we live. We don't throw anything away. It's done no harm. I can't remember any time they've been ill because we've had something past its sell by date or whatever. But that's my responsibility within my family. I'm just wondering how you kind of work that out in the cafe, really, just the risk factor.
From a food safety management perspective. I'll take that one shot. It's very simple. We don't do anything that's not safe. Yeah. So we get a lot of fresh food from the markets, fresh fruit and vegetables. Sometimes we'll have things where one tomato in a box has gone. You throw that away. You wash the rest of the box. They're still fine. I mean, some of them are not even ripe. Sometimes It's common sense, really. We train our volunteers and we supervise things properly to make sure that no one does anything that's not safe. But at the end of the day, we cook the food and we serve it hot. Yeah. I think that's really important. I think that people have also become divorced from food, and people are very blind to what's actually going on with the food, and they're focused on the dates a lot of the time. We had some milk in the cafe this morning that we put in coffee. The cafe's not open. We were just prepping for this and another event that we're doing. It was 3 weeks past its sell-by date, past its use-by date. It's still fine. It's still fine. And I don't think that's even been frozen. We freeze milk. That's the other thing. We'll freeze a lot of stuff because we get it kind of, at the point that it's going out of date. So we'll freeze it and use it, that way, preserve it that way. We do other things to preserve stuff. But yeah, mainly I think it's just we're very rigid on the sort of hygiene standards. We make sure that everything's clean and all the food's washed and cooked properly. Okay.
Question here? I don't. This isn't my area of expertise personally, but I've spoken to a few people who are involved in organic gardens,
Mhm.
Do you have storage facilities or do you have sort of a workaround?
So we have limited storage facilities, but the workaround we mostly use is we don't store things for very long. This is how the Freegan box scheme that I mentioned before came about, because we were intercepting more and more fruit and veg from Digbeth markets on a Saturday evening, and we got to the point where it was a little bit more than we could get through regularly. So what we started doing was, I mean, initially we were just saying to people, we've got a lot of food, if you want some, come and get it. That didn't really work, people weren't really engaging. We started the box scheme where we said, we've got a surplus, you know, who wants some? People engaged with that. We just put the food into a box, we make up the boxes, and people either come and collect or we deliver. And I think the delivery is the real key there, because we're distributing it. It doesn't cost very much from a mileage perspective to deliver all the way around Birmingham. Literally, you know, we're delivering to, you know, Kings Heath, Cotteridge, Sturchley, and all the way back up to sort of Aston, out towards Castle Bromwich. And you're talking about a general sort of average delivery, Ladywood as well, sorry, a general average delivery charge of sort of like £1.50, £2, something like that for most people. So it's very, very affordable to do that kind of thing. And we are working with some allotments and community gardens, and if there are more that want to get involved, then we're absolutely happy to do that. As I said, the key is turnover. Yeah, the more people know about it, the better. The more people, you know, we can just redistribute all of this stuff. And I think that's the key, really, is redistributing.
I understand that the produce that you'll be dealing with and the products will be quite different, but do you work with food banks at all in terms of raising awareness of your services, especially food, talking about, raising awareness of that and accessibility to the users of the food banks?
Yeah, we do. So we work with food banks in a couple of capacities. We take their waste. So food banks don't give out things that are past their date, and they don't give out larger catering size things that get donated, because they can only give out 3 days of food. So we take food that they can't give out, that would otherwise be going in the bin, and yeah, absolutely, there's a reciprocity there where they make their users aware of our services around the cafe, if they're relatively local to Small Heath, where it is at the moment, or the Freegan box scheme. And yeah, a number of our Freegan box referrals have come through from food banks.
Any more questions?
Yeah, you said that you were intercepting food, and I was wondering, you just mentioned one, but where is it coming from? And do you have to throw food, or you're trying?
Do we have to what, sorry?
Do you have some waste as well in terms of the cafe or whatever?
Yeah, so where does our food, 2 questions, yeah, where does our food come from and do we have waste, yeah? Okay. Where does our food come from? Do you want to take any of these, jump in? No? Okay. Thanks. So a variety of sources. Over half our food by weight comes from Digbeth markets, fruit and veg stalls on a Saturday evening. That's the biggest source of food for us at the moment. We work with a number of restaurants, some of which we can name, some of which are more well known, but we can't name because we've signed agreements that say we won't. And we work, as I said, we get quite a bit of food from various food banks. And where else do we get food from? Oh, supermarket skips. So we talk to supermarkets. We've tried a number of times to arrange backdoor collections with supermarkets. For whatever reason, that hasn't really worked out. So we just go and take the food out of their bins. Because we believe that the crime is throwing the food away, basically. And the waste, yeah, okay. So yeah, we have a certain amount of unavoidable waste. As I said, a lot of the produce we get is on its sort of at the end of its usable life. So there's a certain amount of wastage through that. And then there's a certain amount of unavoidable wastage around peelings and sort of seeds and things like that. So we have one of our volunteers keeps chickens. All the seeds go to feed the chickens. The rest of the compostable waste gets composted. We recycle what we can. The residual goes to residual at the moment, unfortunately. We don't have any arrangements with anaerobic digestion or anything like that. That's something we'd definitely be interested in. But, you know, we're a grassroots organisation with 0 funding. We have no paid staff and, you know, no money for sort of anything like that. So, you know, if anyone knows an AD company that wants to get involved and offer us a free service, that'd be awesome. But For now, we just do what we can. As I said, we compost locally, and yeah, minimise our waste stream. Yeah.
Thank you. Where's the cafe?
Where's the cafe? The cafe, so Fusion Cafe at the moment is operating out of All Saints Church in Smallheath, which is just off the Coventry Road, the old Coventry Road, the High Street in Smallheath. It's kind of this end, town end of it. It's about 15 minutes walk from here. We are looking at other locations around the city at the moment. Can't say any more about that, I'm afraid. And we pop up all over the place. So next Friday, we're at Digbeth Community Garden for First Friday, 6 till 8 p.m. We'll be at Cocoa Mad Festival on Saturday, on the Saturday after that. Where else? Go on.
Well, I was just going to say that we've got a stall downstairs if anyone
Oh,
wants
yeah.
to fly it. It's got our contact details and the address of the cafe, and also our social media links. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook, it's
TRJFP Brum on both. The Real Junk Food Project in Birmingham.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That's it. Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Gareth.
Thank you.
So what I'm going to say now is just a quick reminder about those forms in your bags. If you haven't filled out a feedback form, then please do so and pop it downstairs on your way out. We're going to have a little break now, and